If I could go back to the start of year 12 and teach myself one thing about English, it would be how to write a proper thesis. Because I spent months stuck on the same 14, 15, 16 out of 20 in essays, not realizing that the problem wasn't my paragraphs, it was my first sentence. Hi everyone, I'm Caitlin. I ended up finishing with a 95 in English Advanced and full marks in the trials for 1984, but that came after a lot of trial and error. So in this video, I want to show you exactly what I wish someone had shown me sooner, how to break down the 2024 English Standard Paper 1 essay question and build a Band 6 thesis statement. Let's get into it. I'll start with what the question's asking you to do. In what ways has the study of your prescribed text given you insights into the complex relationship between human qualities, motivations, and actions? From the onset, I can see that there are three key ideas the marker is looking for. 1. Human qualities. These are emotional or moral traits that define who we are, like courage, fear, loyalty, hate, love, resilience. 2 is motivations. This is why people act the way they do. It's the desire behind the behavior. In 1984, that might be Winston's yearning for truth, or the party's obsessive need for control. And 3, actions. These are the visible behaviors like rebellion, betrayal, submission, and resistance. But this question isn't asking you just to define qualities, motivations, and actions in isolation. It's asking you to explore how those three things interact. We can tell this by the part of the question that mentions complex relationship. So you need to give your insight into how these three key ideas feed into the other, how they contradict each other, and how Orwell manipulates them in 1984 to reveal something deeper about the human condition. So now that we've unpacked the question properly, let's talk about your thesis statement. It is super important to set up your thesis statement properly because it essentially tells the marker your core argument that you'll be developing across the rest of the essay. A good thesis does three main things. First, it directly responds to the question using the key words. So in this question, we know that the key words are human qualities, motivations, and actions. The second thing it does is show a clear line of thinking. Here's where you'll briefly give your own take on how 1984 explores the complex relationship between qualities, motivations, and actions. You're essentially saying, this is what Orwell is doing, and this is what it reveals. And third, it sets up your essay, meaning that everything that comes after it should be building on the idea that you've introduced in your thesis. Let's take a look at an example. By the way, I pulled this example from a proposed plan from this really cool tool called Excel HSC Copilot. Inside the platform, there's a full breakdown of everything you need to approach a question like this, without the guesswork. You'll find study cards to jog your memory, character studies of all the characters in 1984, theme breakdowns like important themes such as totalitarianism, and any writing tips that we've got for you, and practice questions. This is where you'll also find a suggested thesis, just like the one I'm about to show you now, and some quick tips you can use before you start writing your own response. And once you've written it, you can plug it straight into the AI feedback tool and it'll assess your answer against the marking criteria and show you exactly where you can improve. But for now, here's a sample thesis that answers the 2024 question and reflects everything that we just talked about. George Orwell's 1984 provides profound insights into the complex interplay between human qualities, motivations, and actions under a totalitarian regime. The novel illustrates how human emotions such as fear, love, and rebellion are manipulated by oppressive forces, revealing the fragility of individuality and the capacity for resistance within a controlled society. Let's break it down. We begin with the text and the author, George Orwell's 1984, which you always want to do in your first sentence. Then we say, provides profound insights, which is already answering the question. Next, the complex interplay between human qualities, motivations, and actions. This is important because it brings the exact language of the question. But notice, we're not just repeating it. We've added the word interplay to show that we understand the relationship between those elements is dynamic. Then we bring in the world of the text, under a totalitarian regime. This helps contextualize the insight. You're not just talking about humans in general, you're talking about how human behavior shifts under control and surveillance. The second sentence gives us the specific lens. Orwell illustrates how human emotions such as fear, love, and rebellion are manipulated. This is where you start narrowing in on your argument. What's being manipulated? Emotions. By who? Oppressive forces. This connects directly to the motivations and actions part of the question. And then we close with what the reader is meant to take away from it, revealing the fragility of individuality and the capacity for resistance within a controlled society. This is where your insight comes in. The point of this is not to copy it word for word, but to see how each part of the sentence is doing a job. You can adapt the phrasing to suit your style, but this is a good structure to follow for your statement. Here's another example from the sample paper. I'll let you pause this video and read over it, and then come back and let's break it down. So we open with a clear statement of the form and purpose of the text. A profound exploration of the human experience under the shadow of a totalitarian regime. This sets the tone and gives your thesis a sense of weight and direction. Next, the response brings in the core terms from the question: human qualities, motivations, and actions. But it doesn't just repeat them. It shows how these elements are being manipulated and distorted, which adds a layer of complexity that the marker is really looking for. Then we see specific examples of human quality like fear, love, and rebellion, which gives the response focus. You don't want to list every possible idea. It's stronger to pick a few that relate clearly to your argument and explore them in more detail in your later body paragraphs. The second half of the thesis introduces the bigger insight, which is the resilience and fragility of human individuality when subjected to systemic manipulation. This is where the marker sees you're not just describing what happens in the text, you're offering a perspective on what it means. And finally, the thesis closes with a sentence that ties the analysis back to the human condition and the broader implications of authoritarian power. Now that you have your thesis statement, you can go ahead and write the rest of your essay around it. Your introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion should all link back to this central idea. Once you've done that, here's where Excel HSC Copilot really comes in handy. Let me show you how I'd use this same sample essay inside the platform. All I have to do is paste the response into the AI tool and press the submit answer. It'll take a few seconds to analyze the essay. Then it gives me a breakdown of feedback on things like how clearly I answered the question, how strong the line of argument is, whether I've integrated evidence effectively, and where I can improve clarity and depth. From there, I can apply the suggestions, tweak my response, and feed it back into the tool to see if my marks improve. And the more you do that across different practice questions, the more confident you'll know exactly what a strong response looks like. If you want to give it a go, you can access the full English course for free. I've left a link in the bio. You'll get access to everything I mentioned earlier: study cards, character profiles, theme breakdowns, writing tips, practice questions, and of course, the AI tool that gives you instant feedback on your essays. Give it a go and let me know if it helped in the comments below.